Hi everyone, I just wanted to walk you through this font exercise that I completed for this blog post. First of all, I'm using Google Docs, and a lot of people aren't aware of the fact that you have access to a ton of fonts. Google is using a font database that is used by, Adobe Illustrator and through Microsoft. So I don't know if you just saw what I did, but if you go into the fonts and you click on more fonts, you have the ability to add fonts just by clicking on them to your fonts collection. So then you won't have to do this again. So it'll be added right to your every new document that you create. So you have access to a lot of fonts, more decorative ones, your sans serif ones, your more traditional looking serif fonts. So it's really crazy. So you really can really choose the font that best suits the message that you're trying to convey through the work that you're doing. And this is really good also because if you're using the Google Apps for Education in your classroom, you can also show this to your students and start to make them more aware of, what certain fonts convey and, that they have access to all of this. It'll be really, really useful for them if they're working on a project. So here you can see that I chose a wide variety of fonts, the more traditional serif fonts, some that are in between, like this philosopher font, which can be considered a decorative font, but it is both serif and sans serif. And I feel like it's really versatile. It always makes me think of Harry Potter because of the Philosopher's Stone, I guess. But it also, like, I use the word galactic here and it still looks appropriate for that. But what it is not mechanical looking because it does have this like flow. Whereas this font, like a Source Code Pro, definitely is more like robotic, more mechanical, and definitely wouldn't be appropriate for like unicorn. Like when I think unicorn, Code Pro is not the font that I think of. I would think of more like a Playfair display or even this Allegria. Um, I also included rock salt and shadows into the light, which are more, like mimicking the handwriting, like a casual handwriting. But whenever I look at rock salt, it always makes me think of like Key West, like, advertisements with like marlins on them and like deep sea fishing. And I don't know, it just, but not, obviously not like Colonial Williamsburg. That would be more of like a more traditional font like a Playfair display or even a Merriweather. Merriweather always makes me think of like colonial times and like very formal. And then, your more traditional things that have been around for a long time, like Comic Sans, not traditional, obviously, it's a decorative font, but it's been around for a long time and it's almost become like a joke amongst people who like work in graphic design, like, oh, it's Comic Sans. It reminds me of like childhood or like superhero, but nobody would look at the Comic Sans font and say that it was like mature looking. It's definitely one of the more one of the fonts that we associate more with childish things with children, and I know my students, they go to it a lot. And then the last one I chose was like a bold font that's always bold, ultra. This is like what the font always looks like. I didn't do this. Like this would be powerful as, a header. Again, it is a serif font, so it is more traditional. And then while I was doing this, I have a kitten, and he was like laying next to me, and I was like, this font does not say kitten. um, so then I chose two handwriting fonts as well. The Pinyin script, which is definitely like a more fancy, like what they said in our readings, wedding invitation, is not urban, was the contrasting word that I chose. And then this Homemade Apple happens to be like my new favorite script font. I actually used it on my MMP proposal. because I really like it. It reminds me of the script that's used when you buy like homemade jams and jellies. That's why I included the word jelly. It also reminds me of my own handwriting, so that's why I put teacher, because the students are always like, you have such nice teacher writing, and I'm like, that's just my handwriting. But the words, like, it's not disdainful, like it doesn't, this kind of font does not ever convey like anything negative. I think like it's a very positive looking font. I think scripts in general are very positive looking. So this is just an overview of my font exercise. Now, when I tried to transfer this onto my blog, it was canceling out all the formatting, so all the scripts were coming out the same. So I'm on a MacBook, so what I used was Command. If you have a MacBook, you can do this. Shift and then the number 4. So if you click Command Shift 4, it gives you this little guy, and then you just pull it across, and it will take a screenshot of your project, and then you can insert that directly into your blog as an image. Happy fonting, and I will see you in cyberspace.